Hello and welcome back to Powered Up Festival, organised and hosted by Ideas Powered. Now, today we're talking about something which is absolutely crucial to all creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship. We're talking about intellectual property, or IP for short. Now, it's a very complex topic to discuss in just 15 minutes. So, in this session, we're going to focus on the basics and explore how IP can help you to power and protect your creations and innovations. So, to help us navigate this very tricky topic, we are joined by an IP expert, Benjamin Winsner, who is from the European Union Intellectual Property Office. Ben, welcome to Powered Up Festival.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for inviting me.
Good to have you here. I'm going to dive straight in because we've got a lot to cover in this session. And You're going to hate me for this question, but in a nutshell, what is intellectual property?
Yeah, quick. So let me try to be quick, even though I'm a lawyer. Yeah. So intellectual property. So it's any other type of property that you own. Intellectual property is similar. Yeah. But you touched upon it. So basically, it's your creations that you have created. So it doesn't protect ideas. So if you have an idea to write a piece of music, that in itself can't be protected. However, when you created that piece of music, that's when you also get your intellectual property. When it comes to music, it's something called copyright. So it's a right that derives straight from when you have created something. So a piece of music, a screenplay, or whatever it can be. Then you have other type of intellectual property as well. Trademarks, that is basically the brand of your product or your brand. It's also something that you create. You come up with a brand and then you register it as a trademark. Design, you come up with some type of design. You design a piece of clothing. You can get design for that. And then if you, on the more technical side, if you kind of invent some type of technical solution, that would be a patent. So as you see, it's all derives from yourself, something that you create. Once you have created it, you can get intellectual property to that. So no ideas, but the creation itself.
Great, that's very well done in such a short space of time, I must say. Look, so we've got patents, designs, copyright, and trademarks. So rather than focus on these areas one by one, I thought it would be nice to focus on the type of profile that these things are relevant for, because our followers have very different backgrounds, from artists to entrepreneurs to developers. So let's take an example of a young entrepreneur who had originally had an idea and now they want to move forward to actually protect it. So which areas of IP would be particularly relevant for, say, a young entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on what type of business they want to do. But the first tip is that think about IP from the start. Yeah? So when you start thinking about your product, when you have this idea, start thinking about what type of IP could potentially be applicable to your idea. Either it's just a trademark or a patent or all of them together. Yeah, but that should be from the start. You can do a lot of research yourself. We have a lot of information about this on the EUIPO website. We have it on ideaspower.eu as well. So you do research, think about what you want to do, and see if these type of IPs kind of fit into what you want to do. A tip would be to actually hire a professional that specializes in IP to start with and have them help you in this investigation. Because you don't want to end up in a situation where you produce a product, you decide a brand name, you start marketing it, and you realize that this brand is way too similar to something that already exists, and you're risking to actually infringe in someone else's right. Or someone has already taken that brand name, they do something completely different, but it makes it difficult for you to kind of use that brand as well. And then just a quick note on these type of IP rights. They're all territorial, which means that where you register it, that's where they're valid. There are some international conventions that that gives you a right to kind of use your patent or register a trademark, for example, in the EU, that you can do with EUIPO. But patents, you can use your home patent, so to speak, to make it valid in other countries. The difference between these type of trademarks, designs, and patents and copyright is that copyright can't be registered, but it's still valid. In effect, a lot of countries around the world have similar kind of rules when it comes to copyright and how it is protected. So copyright is one of those rights that might be actually valid in a lot more countries, and you don't have to register it, but it kind of appears as soon as you have created your piece of work. And then also, just quickly, domain names. Please think about that, because even though it's not a proper IP right, maybe it could be discussed, but you should also think about your domain name, because you want your domain name to reflect whatever product name or company name you have. And this is the way people are going to find you online. And today, the online business is huge and it's just growing. Yeah? So make sure to think about the domain name as well. That should play part in when you decide what type of brand you should have for your product, for example.
So there's an awful lot to consider if you're thinking about being a young entrepreneur. It really covers a lot of different areas of IP.
Yeah.
But sticking on the kind of tech world and the online world that you mentioned at the end, so let's stick on these kind of example profiles. So if I was into coding, or I was a tech entrepreneur and I was thinking of launching an app, what areas of IP, copyright, patents, which ones should I really be focused on before I launch it?
Yeah, well, good question. I mean, that type of area, I think you would probably be connected to all types of IP. Yeah? So I'm going to use, Steve. So if we say you create an app called Steve's app, so that in itself is a brand. Yeah, so it's a trademark. So that is definitely something that you should protect. Then you have the layout of the app itself. So you know how they look in App Store or on your phone. That type of layout, that could potentially be protected by design. Then patents. So say, for example, this app actually solves some type of technical solution. So that could potentially then be registered as a patent as well. And to end off with, the code. So the code that you do to create this app could actually be protected under copyright as well. So here's an example of where all 4 IP rights actually will come to play, and you have to kind of think of those when you start this business.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about the way the app looks, because I know that the Google homepage is actually a protected design, the way that it looks with the search box and everything. So this is the kind of thing that you need to be aware of.
Exactly.
And specifically looking at design, so in other areas of design, if I was a fashion designer or a product designer, I guess the design rights are by nature the most interesting IP right for me to look at. Would that be right?
Yeah, well, it comes from the name, the designer. So obviously, the design will be a big part of it. So if you design a piece of furniture, a dress, or a shirt, or whatever, design will be crucial. But trademarks is as important. So a T-shirt is always a T-shirt. So I'm not going to go into rules about what is needed to register a design, but a T-shirt looks like a T-shirt pretty much have been for ages. Yeah? So you might not necessarily be able to register as a design, depending on obviously the design of the T-shirt. But there's the trademark. So you have these big luxury brands. Of course, they have a value in their brand. So you pay probably more for a T-shirt of certain brands than others. So here, the trademark building and giving kind of extra value to the product through your brand name is also very important.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting because a lot of people talk about branding, and in this sense, in the intellectual property world, branding is essentially a trademark. It's you protecting your brand. The way to do that is by registering a trademark.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great. I know a lot of our followers, speaking of branding, are interested in getting into the food and drink space. So a lot of people interested in launching their own food businesses or perhaps a new drink. So let's play devil's advocate with that one. Say I was about to launch, say, a new energy drink. Which areas would I need to focus on in that sort of IP right?
Yeah. So, well, let's use you as an example again then. So Steve's energy drink or Steve's energy, that would obviously be your brand. So your trademark. Depending on how your bottle looks like or can, potentially that could also be protected as a design. But normally a bottle or a can looks like a can, so that's probably not going to be the key thing. So I would say here the trademark is the most important thing. However, there is so when you create an energy, especially an energy drink or kind of soft drink with flavor, you obviously have different components in this drink, and you need to. Well, there's other rules saying that you need to list what type of products you have in your drink, but it doesn't say how you mix it or what percentage you take from one to another, and that's a recipe. Yeah? So it's a recipe for your energy drink, as is Coca-Cola. They have their recipe, and we all know that their recipe is well guarded. Yeah, so that's called a trade secret. You have certain rules that regulates this, but the basic principle is if you can't protect it, is keep it under lock. So lock it in a safe. Don't tell anyone. Well, you need to tell the people who produces it, I guess, if you don't do it yourself. But keep it under lock. Yeah, because that's your trade secret. So that's what makes your product special and taste a certain way compared to others. Because recipes are one of these type of things that is very hard to get protected under IP rules. So that would be a trade secret, and that's something you need to keep confidential.
Fascinating. So let's move on to the artistic community, because they, in a sense, can't keep their creativity a secret. So if I'm an artist or a designer or a musician, kind of a general artistic community, they're all about getting their work out there to people. So they can't lock it away like Mr. Coca-Cola did. So how would they protect their intellectual property rights? Which areas should they be focused on?
Well, I think that most of the artists we talk about copyright then. So if you have a musician, he or she creates a piece of music, and that would be that would be protected under copyright rules. And actually, you want to release it or at least send it to someone or make a timestamp to prove that you were the first, or have a date where you say this copyright started from this date and onwards. So that's the main kind of IP that they will use. Then, we have very famous people. You've seen the trends. They kind of register their own name as a trademark, and they do that not necessarily maybe because they have to, because their type of work is so connected to their person. But sometimes you can register your name to get this additional kind of right or protection for similar services that you might not do, but you have people that are interested to kind of ride on your famous name. But normally it's copyright, but then you can register your name as a trademark as well.
Right. So I guess an example would be if we took Billie Eilish, her music will be protected by copyright, but her name could be registered as a trademark. That's
exactly. If she hasn't done it already, I'm not really sure, but I would assume so. But yeah, her name would definitely be protected as a trademark. Because these artists, they don't just do music; they do a lot of other stuff. You have T-shirts and just promotional materials and other stuff that they sell under their name, and then you need to protect it as a trademark.
Yeah, I guess it links into what you were saying earlier about a t-shirt is just a t-shirt. But if a t-shirt has Billie Eilish's name on it and she's trademarked that, she's the
Yeah.
only person who can bring out that t-shirt. Whereas if she
Exactly.
hadn't trademarked it, we could all print t-shirts with Billie Eilish's name on.
Yeah, I'm not going to go in. I'm a lawyer, so I need to say this, but there are certain rules in certain countries talking about using other people's name, at least famous people. But we're not going to go into that. But yeah, you're right. The principle is like that. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm diving in a bit too deep. I know it's a very complex topic, but it
No, no.
seems
Well, I'm
that
happy. I can sit here all day talk about this, but I'm sure our audience might not be that interested in it.
but it generally seems that across all of the different profiles that we've discussed, depending on your background and your area of IP, the one thing that seems to be clear is you don't necessarily need to be an expert about it. You just need to be aware of it from the start. Would you say
Yeah.
that's probably the key?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, you probably need to involve an expert if you don't feel comfortable yourself, because it is tricky, and you don't want to step on any toes, and you want to make sure that you're protected as well, so no one else kind of infringes in your right. So, but there's a lot of information out there. You can do your research. I mentioned it previously. We have a lot of information on the EUIPO website, on ideaspower.eu as well. So there's a lot of information you can get a hold of yourself, but at some point, I would probably recommend to kind of enlist the services of some type of professional that knows a bit more about IP, especially if you have concerns about certain things. Yeah? But yeah.
Great. Well, we'll definitely put the links to the websites that you mentioned underneath the video. So if anyone wants to dive deeper into intellectual property, feel free to do so. We'll leave it there for the moment because it's such a complex topic. I think we've covered a good broad introduction to intellectual property. Please comment on the video if you've got any other questions, and Ben will come on and have a little look after the recording. And yeah, Ben, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a fascinating 20 minutes or so.
Thank you, Steve.
Great. Take care.
You too. Bye.